So without further ado, I'd like to first welcome Marco Baresi, who is the Institutional and Marketing Director at Turboden, and he will provide the welcoming introduction remarks. Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Hans. Good morning, and thanks to all participants. I'm Marco Baresi, Institutional Affairs and Marketing Director in Turboden. I'm very glad to open this webinar and to share the experience of this challenging project. Let me say challenging for two main reasons. First of all, the project started in 2020, and all of us know what's happened in the last 2 years in terms of pandemic COVID-19, as well as the invasion of Ukraine and related strong energy crisis in Europe. Challenging because we can't imagine at the conceptual stage of the project the extraordinary link with the actions and technologies needed to reduce the impact of the energy crisis. HEATLEAP, in fact, is focused on large industrial heat pump applications and on technology to improve the energy efficiency in gas distribution network and related monitoring system and optimization. That perfectly fits with REPowerEU and the Net Zero Act under definition. A special thanks to the LIFE framework program that make it possible. I'm also very glad and honored for the kindly participation of Claudia Canevari, Head of Unit Energy Efficiency, DG Energy from the European Commission. Many thanks, Claudia, for your time. I remember you were also present at the kickoff, so you are familiar with the project and confirming the high level of attention to the energy efficiency policy and technology. Before giving the floor to you for the keynote speech, I kindly remind all participants the agenda with the 3 sections scheduled: a brief overview of the project from myself, a presentation of waste heat power paper that are representing different configuration of excess heat for heat valorization. So it means power, heat, or combined. It is the first time, in my opinion, we have a complete picture of this. And in the last section, we go deeper into concrete waste heat realization, waste heat recovery realization with project already in operation. At the end, there will be space for question and answers by participant, and we schedule it to end the webinar by 11:45. So, dear Claudia, the floor is yours. Thank you again.
Thank you, Marco. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody around this virtual table. Many thanks to Hans and to Marco for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here with you today. Certainly talking about waste heat, talking about heat is very important because as you all know, half of the energy that we consume is to heat our homes, our offices, private and public buildings, and to produce the industrial goods and services that we collectively depend upon. And so it's obviously a key sector, but at the same time, heating and cooling are significant source of greenhouse gas emissions. And for this reason, is a sector that stays in the spotlight of the green transition. And clearly today's heating and cooling networks and systems need a transition from fossil fuels to cleaner, more modern systems in a cost-effective way. The amount of fossil energy that need to be replaced is quite impressive because it's about 300 to 400 MTOEs. And one of the keys in the energy transition is a much tighter integration of individual parts of the energy systems. Because an isolated approach where different parallel vertical energy values chain are rigidly linked, this creates a bottleneck towards the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, the reductions that we need in order to address the Paris commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. The governance regulation that we have in the European Union has put in place a cornerstone for the holistic approach in the policy design across the various domains. And we think that this is really a very good approach because by developing plans that are covering both the energy and the climate areas, the member states of the European Union are much better prepared to address energy system integration aspects. We have an important directive in force, as you know, the Energy Efficiency Directive, which includes a requirement for the European Union member states to carry out a comprehensive assessment of the potential of the application of high energy efficiency cogeneration and efficient district heating and cooling, where waste heat use is one of the analyzed options for the heat supply. I have to say that member states were asking to prepare these comprehensive assessments by the end of 2020. And in that context, they were asked to map the largest sources of waste heat. What is a little bit a concern for us from the side of the Commission is that only about half of the member states did consider the potential of waste heat in these comprehensive assessments. And the other half only considered, in any case, mainly industrial waste heat supply. And this is clearly not sufficient because it is important to, let's say, have a clearer overview of the waste heat resources, and because that clearly brings new possibilities for business opportunities, and this is key in view of the decarbonization objectives that we collectively are. And internally in the EU, we hope that in the next cycle of comprehensive assessments, the member states will be more, let's say, attentive to these elements. In fact, the potential supply of the waste heat could be nearly 250 MTOEs, and this therefore could make really a substantial contribution to the decarbonization of heat supply in the European Union. We've also been asking member states to look into heat and waste heat in particular as part of the EU Save Energy Plan that the Commission adopted in 2022 as part of the Repower EU plan, and we got some feedback from the member states. So let's hope that the attention given to this area will be increasing. I would like to recall briefly what is going on in terms of legislation, because the framework is improving as regards waste heat. I mentioned before the Energy Efficiency Directive. Those of you working on energy in the European Union are very familiar with it. For those of you that are not in the European Union, the Energy Efficiency Directive is indeed the cornerstone of our legislation and therefore measures and policies as regards energy efficiency. It has been in force since 2012. It was revised in 2018, and it has been subject to another revision process very recently, and this is because it needs to be adapted to the increased challenges as regards energy efficiency. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because in this, let's say, latest modification of the Energy Efficiency Directive, which modifications that were agreed in March and should be soon in force, there is, let's say, an increased role for heat and waste heat. In fact, it was decided that the heating, efficient district heating should be supplied only from renewables and waste heat as of 2050. So in that sense, waste heat is on equal footing with the heat from renewables. And there are different issues, in particular 4 that I would like to recall in the recast of the Energy Efficiency Directive. So these, let's say, latest development that are relevant for the heating and cooling sector, in particular as regards the waste heat use. The first one is that there is a redefinition of efficient district heating and cooling, as well as high efficiency cogeneration. The purpose of these is to ensure that public investments or other state aids will contribute investments capable to contribute to the decarbonization of the energy system in the long run. The second point concerns the energy efficiency first principle, which is given let's say a full recognition in this revised text. And the idea is that there is the need to maximize the energy performance in the energy systems as a whole. And this should be done by removing all regulatory, technical, and non-regulatory barriers for energy efficiency improvements. And the principle should be applied also by national regulatory authorities, transmission and distribution system operators. The third element I would like to recall is that the directive foresees a requirement to take measures to capture the potential for the application of high efficiency cogeneration and efficient district heating and cooling when those are identified by the member states in the national comprehensive assessments. So there is now an obligation to put forward measures in this respect. And the fourth element that I would like to recall is the requirement to conduct installation level cost-benefit analysis to assess the feasibility of more efficient solutions for the energy services, including through the supply of waste heat to the consumers. And this applies to thermal electricity generation, to industrial installations, to service facilities, and to data centers. And there are different thresholds above which this is necessary. And just a final element from my side is that it's important to remember that we have now in the European Union, or we will soon have when this directive revised enters into force really in the next couple of months, there will be, as regards district heating, there will be 4 intermediate steps in 2028, 2035, 2040, and 2045 to convert these systems into fully decarbonized efficient district heating and cooling systems. And there are shares of renewables or waste heat that have to be reached in order to be efficient district heating. And it is starting from 5% in 2028 to then reach 35% in 2035 and 75% in 2045. As you see, the role of waste heat is becoming really very important in the way the European Union is trying to address the challenge of decarbonizing the whole of the continent by 2050. And therefore, projects like the one we are discussing today are really important. So I'm very happy to have participated in this webinar, and I look forward to the next steps. Many thanks. Marco, the floor is back to you, or Hans. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Claudia, and a lot of things, a lot of interesting topics. I'm impressive about the small consideration in the assessment, in the 2020 assessment of the waste heat by member states, but most probably it was 3 years ago. Now are changing, and I am back from the European Heat and Power Congress, the Congress of Utility this week, and I have seen a lot of word about waste heat during the Congress. So, but a question for you, do you think European Commission will do something to boost these to the member states to consider waste heat in the assessment, or in principle is already included in the energy efficiency revision?
Well, the Commission is planning to come out with a series of guidance documents like we normally do when an important directive with complex technical and let's say normative issues is adopted. I don't have yet a framework, but it should be before the end of the year. And the articles linked to heating and cooling of the directive will be part of these guidance documents. So the idea is really to try to explain all the different elements to sensibilize also the member states to these aspects. So this is one initiative that we are taking, and I think what is important is that really there is now a requirement to take measures to capture, as I was mentioning before, the potential for high efficient cogeneration and efficient district heating. So that makes, let's say, stronger the role of the Commission to push member states to adopt measures in this respect. And waste heat, as indicated, is becoming a key component. So I think it will be probably gradual necessarily, because there is the need to give the time to member states to adapt, but certainly the instruments are strong, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your insight.